All right, guys. That was a really, really long 2 weeks over Thanksgiving. Hated it. We had no UFC. Finally done spending time with the family, so you can go back to your caves and watch some UFC. We got a great card for you. We've got a debut fighter coming into the main event in Kai Asakura. Let's see what kind of value we can tap into for this weekend.
100%, 100%. And I believe we've got Grant back here too, so that's exciting. So we have somebody that actually knows what they're talking about rather than me trying to just throw in whatever 2 cents I have. So, but with that said, we've got Kennedy and Njoku as somebody to focus on. And this picture is not flattering for him, I'm sorry to say. But Jackson, walk us through why he is entertaining here. He just looks very confused as to why he's there.
Yeah, so I just realized I didn't update the prices on these first two prelim slides. That's fine. Kennedy is $3.15. Luca Bresky, his opponent, $2.21. And the reality is that Kennedy elsewhere is a huge favorite. I think he opened at around 5-1. Now it's getting closer to like 6.5-1 odds in Kennedy's favor. So you're getting great value for Kennedy here. He's big for this class. I mean, he is traditionally a light heavyweight fighting heavyweight here, but he's a huge guy. Decent takedown defense, very tough, like never out of a fight, multiple come from behind wins. And that's a lot of the reason for that is he's a bit low volume, especially early in fights, a little bit tentative in his striking. So he'll fall behind early somewhat often. Definitely powerful and dangerous though, very accurate when he does throw. Like I said, durable, coming off his first round stoppage win over Chris Barnett, where Barnett seemed to injure himself before even starting the fight. And Lucas Bresky, well-rounded heavyweight, powerful, fast, good takedowns. And he's an athletic guy, mixes it up pretty well, good leg kicks. He is definitely a bit chinny, though. He's coming off a first-round knockout loss to Mick Parkin, who isn't really a high-power guy. And like I said, this fight's at heavyweight. Kennedy isn't a true heavyweight. This is his second fight up. He looked completely fine size-wise against Barnett in his last fight. And he's a good fighter. He's the only fighter to have beat Carlos Ulberg in mixed martial arts. I think Kennedy wins here. This is a short notice fight. Lucas was supposed to fight a young prospect. And I just think Kennedy's like, he's a vet. He's going to be faster. He'll be more powerful. Physically imposing, even though he's new to this weight class. I think we're getting great value for him on PS.
How does he normally fight at light heavyweight if he's 6'5" with that build? I feel like that's like a giant dude. How is that 205 pounds?
It's crazy, bro. Like
that dude in that photo
like such a natural
205 pounds. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, dude. He looks like such a natural heavyweight. It's like you would think there is an issue with that move up, but I just don't think there's
the 6'5" dudes in light heavyweight are like super thin, I feel like.
Yeah.
Well, one thing is I think I would take this fight to go to the decision, just based off both their kind of resumes. They seem to make things go a bit longer than you would expect, surprisingly.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
But that's the contrarian Wells take for the day on this one. So on to the next one, we got Evloev. Takedown spammer. I like that. Decision unanimous on a consistent basis. Why should we love Mozart here, Jackson?
Yeah. So he's going up against Aljo Sterling, who's $15.35. I believe Mozart is sitting at around a 2.5-1 favorite in this fight right now. And it's obvious, like Will said, Evloev's a takedown spammer. It's going to be a boring fight if he does win it. Both of these guys, honestly, are fighters who like to keep the pace slow. Evloev, the difference is Evloev wants to get takedowns, get control on top. Aljamain wants to get on your back. People call him a backpack grappler. And I like this is I'm surprised kind of that this is in the prelims. It's a pretty important fight for rankings. Yeah. Evloev is good, like could go 19-0 here, like beat a former champion, become a real contender. Aljo could revitalize his career right here against someone who's just been dominating. So, Aljo, I think it's a simple one to break down at the end of the day. Aljo, his best thing he has going for him is his wrestling and grappling, and Evloev is just a better wrestler than he is. Evloev's also, I'd say, the better striker of the two from what I've seen. A lot of people seem to glaze Aljo's striking pretty hard. It's super unorthodox, and it's like I mean, I don't think it's super good striking. Like it's a really intentional unorthodox style. I just think he doesn't really know how to strike all that well. Yeah, wouldn't call him a high level striker. I think Evloev probably hasn't beat there in the wrestling. Aljo is a good grappler. I just think Evloev gets the takedowns he needs to get it done here.
I like it. I see Chris Weidman and Eric Anders was moved to this card.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Nate Landwehr versus Do Ho Choi. Is this the one that gets like the first round knockouts all the time or whatever?
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting one. Both these guys are.
I guess it's an exciting fight for sure, but it feels like the Aljo fight would have been
a bigger fight than this.
The fifth
definitely bigger
fight in the main card.
And I'm also like, I'm like Bryce Mitchell, Crone, Gracie. Like, make that.
No, I would have bumped those two down.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's whatever, though. I mean, at least we get to watch it for free on ESPN.
Would you throw Brian Battle
before you have to move over to Stream East?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why wouldn't you throw Brian Battle on a main card? He seems like one of the more entertaining fights after last time. Like,
yeah, he's a big prospect.
Like, Bryce Mitchell at this point, from what we've seen, it's like, I don't know. But he is minus 600. Anyways, let's dial in on this one here. Do Ho Choi, bunch of first round knockouts. What should we like here?
Yeah, so I think you're getting a pretty good price for Do Ho Choi if you're on that side of things. I think Nate, the train, is like a 2.5 to or 1.5 to 1 favorite.
Yeah.
And he is Nate Landwehr is kind of a crazy guy. Earned the name to trade because he'll just pretty much instantly come forward at you, chases the finish. He is skilled and very powerful, but he definitely takes one to give one, puts himself in harm's way, I'd say a bit too often, more often than he probably needs to. He looks to pressure you hard right out the gate, like I said, and then just get it to the ground and work from there. He's coming off a finish win over Jamal Emmers, where in pretty much like exactly the style of what I described, he took a ton of damage and then came forward and eventually got the finish with that forward pressure. And then Do Ho Choi, this guy is also a really exciting fighter, a little bit less prolific. He's also a bit past his prime, I'd say. But he, at least at one point, was super exciting. 5 fight of the night bonuses in 7 fights. Powerful striker with pretty good takedown defense. Stays active, throws straight shots. He started his career out really hot. UFC matched him up against some good opponents a little bit too quickly. But he did eventually turn it around against Bill Algeo in his most recent win. And he was super hyped up at one point. I think time is kind of dwindling on like how much he can take advantage of that hype behind him. He has long layoffs between fights. Finally beat Bill Algeo after coming off a losing streak. I think Nate is probably going to win this one here. Choi doesn't have the best takedown defense. Nate is just going to be relentless. I see those two things kind of combining for a Nate Landwehr win.
I like it.
Yeah, in this type of spot, I feel like where it feels like it's just going to be all out from the gates. It feels like a spot where you can take a bit of an underdog, though, because those fights can kind of be closer to 50-50 than the odds might say, just because in those type of scrambles and situations, like you land one shot and the fight could be over just on that. But I don't think he's quite a big enough underdog in order to warrant that. So probably agreeing with you on this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting one. Like, I could definitely see a world in which Do Ho finds a way to catch him.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm just going to give the contrarian pick for each one of these. That I'm just like, you know what? That's how it's going to go. Do Ho Choi, first round knockout, returns to that crazy form we saw him.
Korean Superboy is back.
No, that's what I'm saying. Just out of nowhere, gets this rolling for us.
I like it.
So on to the next one here. We've got Bryce Mitchell versus Crone Gracie. Crone looks like he just crawled out of a cave.
Yeah, a homeless man.
Yeah, like, all right. So what should we be expecting here? From my understanding, Bryce, big kind of jiu-jitsu guy, kind of gets you on the ground, stuff like that. Crone, he literally just looks like a caveman. That's all I got. So walk us through here.
Yeah. So, yeah, like you said, Bryce, dominant wrestler. We know him. Crone Gracie, he's got the Gracie last name. foundational to the sport of mixed martial arts. He lives up to the name, I guess, in the sense that he's a very, very good jiu-jitsu practitioner. Can't really do much else at all. He can't do anything else at all. But Bryce, he is a nonstop wrestler, gets a ton of takedowns, averages over 3 a fight. And that's like right in the sweet spot between having to take someone down too many times and then getting up on you over and over again and you being too low volume. Like 3-ish takedowns is like crazy, perfect sweet spot for wrestling. He has good BJJ, good control, plenty of cardio. Not the best striking. It's not his plan of attack at all, though. Generally, forward pressure grappler, coming off one punch knockout where he went into rigor mortis. And Crone, like I said, yeah, high level BJJ guy. Losses are pretty bad. He pulls guard all the time, like someone who can't do anything else but jiu-jitsu does. Yeah, exactly. I think, the only thing you have to worry about with Bryce Mitchell here is if Crone Gracie is able to squeeze out a sub. Honestly, I think that's worth a little flyer. Like, it's Bryce Mitchell is 100% going to take this one to the ground. So, but yeah, this one has to be Bryce Mitchell for me.
Yeah. Thing on this one, Grant? Trying to see anything that would be contrarian here. I guess we were talking about maybe a submission or something, but I guess maybe Bryce Mitchell knockout. I couldn't even give you a round.
Yeah, I mean, if Bryce it depends on the game plan. Honestly, that could be live. If they're you don't even need to wrestle with this guy.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because it's clear that if you do get this guy on the ground, he is very live for a submission. That's how he got to the UFC, from what I've seen. Or just quick little ESPN search there. I know, genius IQ right there, but no, that's how I see it. So that's my 2 cents. If you can find a prop for any biblical or Republican reference for Bryce Mitchell as well, I would hammer that as well. I feel like if he won the fight, he will go for that. Sorokin versus Alexander Volkov. Now, if I remember correctly, Volkov was a big name at one point, no? Or he was some. Yeah. Okay.
He's a staple in this division, I would say.
All right, walk us through. I feel like everybody's familiar with Gone, but he's become just kind of I wouldn't say a no one, but I just haven't heard his name since he lost to Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's only fought once since then. He actually looked really good in that fight against Spivak. But then he's had another year plus layover. I think it was last September, so a year and some change. But he looked much improved in that fight. The John Jones fight was kind of weird. It almost felt like he was just not comfortable fighting his idol and just was never really in that fight and just kind of assumed he was going to lose because of who his opponent was. It just felt like from the jump that he was just out of it, and that wasn't a fight that he was really locked in on. I don't know if there was an injury or some external factors that were contributing to that. But outside of that, I mean, Gane's been a great prospect throughout his entire career in the UFC, and it feels like he'll be back in the win column in this situation. He's a pretty steady favorite across the board here, and a pretty significant one at that, and you'll get him at underdog prices here. So.
Yeah, I think Gane is probably one of the safer plays on this. He looked great in his last fight, like Grant said, against Spivak, landed 109 significant strikes to Spivak's 11 significant strikes. But Volkov is really good, super long, 6'7", been around forever. He also looked really good in his last fight against Pavlovich, beat him with jabs. He's good at, evolving his fighting style mid-fight, changing things up. He's got a deep arsenal, but like Grant said, I think this is just a really, really safe play on the Gane side. We've seen this fight before. Gane danced around Volkov, piecing him up. It's I don't think a single thing has changed in either of these guys' games since then. Volkov would have either need to really step it up in the striking department or the wrestling department. I don't think he's done either of those things. At least sufficiently to beat a guy like Gane. So great play on PredictionStrike this week.
Yeah, I would say if anything, Gane has improved probably.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
Yeah, I like it. I have nothing else to kind of say here. Maybe Gane submission. Why not? That'll be the unique way. All right. I want to say Charles is going to be in the corner for Ian, so that's going to be fun for him. But Ian versus
This price is interesting.
Yeah, the price is crazy. I think, I mean, I'm not going to say that. I do think PredictionStrike prices are probably more indicative of like how close this fight is than the actual odds are at right now, at least in my opinion.
I would agree,
like
but I think it's probably still like Shavkat should be a few dollars more expensive.
Yeah, totally.
But the minus 375 number you're looking at pretty much across the board feels a little bit outlandish. I mean, it could obviously tighten up. We're recording this on Tuesday. It could tighten up before
what would
Saturday's
you say appropriate
fight,
line is? Because for me, it's like that minus 210, minus 250 range.
Yeah, I would say
that's
just
2 to 1.
Yeah, it's like 230-ish.
Yeah.
2 to 1, yeah. Shavkat is both. I mean, both of these guys, I would say, are special guys, world-class talents. Shavkat, though, he is just such a complete fighter. He has a 100% finish rate. That's pretty much unlike anything you're really going to see at this level of fighting. Can win everywhere on the mat. Great movement. He has judo. I'd say the only thing that could really use some work in his game are his takedowns. Ian is another undefeated guy. Definitely not quite as versatile as Shavkat is, but he's an extremely high-level striker. Very quick hands, very good footwork, great in and out movement. Lands almost six significant strikes to his opponent's 3. Recently moved to shoot box, which has heavily improved his grappling. He got a win over MVP with a lot of focus on the grappling in that one. So both these guys are improving. Ian Gary, particularly in the grappling department, which I think at least makes things a little bit more interesting. I think this fight could go longer too. And another question is that we haven't really seen Shavkat make it deep, at least into a fight in any meaningful way yet. And so you always got to think about what are things that'll look like late if he's not able to get those takedowns on Gary. He did go 1-5 on takedowns against Wonderboy, but I do think Shavkat ultimately is dangerous. Af has more ways to win this one. Yeah. What do you think, Grant?
This is kind of a weird fight because I feel like this is probably both of their strongest opponents, which I feel like you don't really see too often in this type of spot where both of them will be fighting their most talented opposition.
Yeah. You kind of got to question why. You got to question why they matched these two up, don't you think? Like,
yeah, it's weird. But you also look at their last 3 fights, and they have 2 common opponents in Jeff Neal and Neil Magny. You look at how Ian Gary handled those opponents. You had a split decision in one of them and a unanimous decision in the other. Shavkat obviously had an easier time with both of them, got them both out of the way in submission within the 3rd round or earlier. So both inside the distance. Definitely look more comfortable against those two who have kind of served as gatekeepers in the division for a while. I obviously think Ian Gary, there's a lot of that where it's kind of just a lack of experience and kind of getting used to fighting in those type of spots. I don't think you can really hold him too accountable for those spots. I think he's more talented than what he showed in, especially the split decision there, but obviously came away with a victory. I just feel like Shavkat's ceiling is probably a decent amount higher. This feels like a weird kind of casting for this fight, though, because I feel like both of these guys are names that they're trying to market. This feels like this should have been a potential title fight in like a year down the road, just because both these guys have been big names in the division, but obviously, you won't ruin either of their reputations with a loss. They'll kind of be able to work their way back up, but it feels like one of them is going to take a decent hit and might be getting kind of a fraud label if things go a certain way during this fight. So we'll see. But I'd definitely back at the Shavkat side, especially on PS. I would probably stay away from the number elsewhere, but you're getting some pretty undeniable value here. So
I find it interesting that Gary and his team accepted this fight. Like, I feel because he was also offered the fight against Joaquin Buckley next weekend, and it's like that probably also would have been conducive to a title shot, like just as much as this Shavkat fight. So I'm like, I feel like Gary and his team must see something in Shavkat for them to accept this fight, because like Gary is not
together though. Like they generally could have seen something in sparring where they're just like, this is where we went. Like the one thing I will say I've seen about Ian Gary is like this guy is constantly studying film. I'm sure
Yeah.
Shavkat and a bunch of other fighters do just as well, but like he seems obsessed with it.
Totally. He takes his career super, super seriously. And it's like another part of that, I feel like, is this dude, he's kind of at this point notorious for like not accepting fights. Like he's turned down a bunch of fights against wrestlers who could like beat him easily in the past. So I'm like, why? What does he see here? It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to respect it. I honestly think that this card was kind of falling apart. You saw fighters drop out. I think this was supposed to be the Bilal card, right?
Yeah, it was below
Yeah,
versus Shavkat.
Yeah, so you see people dropping out, and it feels like a spot where they probably just paid him a ton in order to come up a week from when he was going to fight Buckley and probably save the card because it's a name that people can get behind and be excited to watch this fight. So I'm sure they probably compensated him heavily, and it was probably a situation where he realized even if he lost, like it's not going to be the biggest deal because Shavkat obviously has a reputation of his own.
Yeah.
So
it makes sense because I was listening to how he was speaking about it as well, and he did like the past couple fights. He's very confident, like I'm going to win, I'm going to win, I'm going to win. And this one, he's just kind of more like, we'll see, like I might win. And it's like I don't know about that. The guy might get wrecked here. So I like where your heads are at on that. I think I'll go with Shavkat to the distance. I think that's the real way to get contrarian here. Is somehow Gary takes the stand to the distance.
That'll be fun odds too because of Shavkat's finish, right?
Exactly. All right. Next one, Kai Asakura versus Alexander Patoya. So I have the casual stance of being very in on Kai Asakura, but like let me explain myself here first before Jackson and Grant give you the actual sharp take on this. It's similar to Gary in the sense it's like you have nobody willing to fight this guy, but like this to me seems more like not Izzy-esque because I don't not Izzy Pereira-esque because they're not on that same level, I think. But like this is a guy that no one wanted to fight, like at all. And I think there is a clear reason for that. Albeit the clip was from like 2 years ago, but I don't know. It seems like he's probably gotten better since then too. But walk me through why Pantoja should theoretically dominate this according to the odds as well.
I assume it's probably all ground based. I mean, if you're striking, it seems like that's kind of the area of why people were scared to fight a Kai Asakura. Coming into this one, you've seen explosive knockouts of broken jaws and kind of everything you can imagine there. But Pantoja is a guy who's very comfortable on the ground and could totally fight towards a submission in this fight, I think, which is probably why they're giving him the advantage.
Yeah, I think there's a good amount of reasons for it. What is the odds right now for Pantoja, Grant?
It's like 285.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously Kai is someone the UFC wants to build around. They're giving him a title shot right away. It's pretty indicative of some pretty big hopes for a fighter. We never see that. He normally fights at 135, so that's one thing. This fight's going to be at 125, so he's doing his first ever UFC fight, cutting weight, flying across the country at a pay-per-view event in Vegas. So I do think it's a bright light sort of thing is a little bit part of it. It's definitely the most eyes he's ever going to have on him, or he's ever had on him before. Yeah, just thrives in a firefight style-wise, super fast striker. Pretty much, or not a ton of, not a huge sample size of him defending takedowns or wrestling or grappling. So that's definitely a big question here, like Grant said. It's pretty much the groundwork on Pantoja's side that's going to be the issue for him. Pantoja is going to be the worst striker here, though. He is the type of guy who's pretty much just going to come forward instantly, go to work, try to get things to the ground. He does have power in his hands, not nearly as technical as Kai is. Mostly a good grappler, good ground and pound, mixes that up with subs. I think Pantoja wins this just with the experience, with the situation Kai is getting put into. But I do think give Kai Asakura 1 or 2 fights, and he is going to be one of the most electric fighters in the UFC. He probably already is. And I think like at this price, 1180 versus a 229 fighter, like why not get in on him right now in case he does get this huge win over Pantoja? Like he's going to get his feet under him at some point. It might take one fight. He might do it right away. It might take a couple fights, but Kai is definitely a guy that's here to stay regardless of the win or loss, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, on PS, you definitely have to take Kai here. There's no value on the Pantoja side. I guess if you're really confident Pantoja, you could always wait until after this fight and then just buy in kind of next week sometime after the price decreases a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the value there is pretty undeniable. Elsewhere, I don't know, the minus 285 number is a little bit scary, but I think if you wanted to target something like Pantoja by submission or inside the distance, or maybe you think it goes to a decision or whatever, but I would probably target the method of victory outside of that. I don't think the 285 number is particularly enticing. But yeah, here, I mean, the Kai number is definitely one to target for sure.
The double
a lot of underdog value.
Like minus 140 for Pantoja. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Not the worst. If you're on the Pantoja side of things, there's way better value on the card in terms of prediction strike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Grant, what is your favorite investment and Wells of the card, do you think?
I mean, I'll let Grant go first.
I kind of like Ryan Battle, like Wells was saying. That is an exciting fighter that I feel like should probably be a little bit higher up on this card. I'm not sure what the pricing looks like, but
it's like a pick-em
spot where he should on PS.
Yeah.
Then I mean that feels like a pretty undeniable spot when you're getting a close to 2.5 to 1 favorite.
Yeah.
The other one that's interesting is Garimbo fought just like a month and a half ago, and he's taking on Luque, which feels like a big step up in class. So I'm not sure what the pricing looks like on that, but that feels like a spot where you could probably look at Luque more in that fight, who would probably be the most talented fighter that Garimbo's fought, and he's kind of on short notice there. So another interesting one to potentially take an underdog.
I like the Luque shout. I don't think the prices are right on PS though. You got Luque at 640 and Temba at 244.
Yeah, I mean you're gonna fade that on PS.
Yeah. Elsewhere though, I honestly do like your Luque shout.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna go with the Kai Asakura kid. I mean, to me, it's just the price is beyond ridiculous for at least PS, and like, why else would they set up this kid? Like, I get the weight thing. Regardless, that's what everybody's having to do is go to these events around the world. Like, that is their job. So I don't know. And you have to train like in Australia. I feel like that's gotta be weird for Gary to constantly move around too. From.
I will say the most stress-free investment feels like Surreal Gone.
I'll say the Gone one.
Probably the best. Yeah.
Evloev might be my favorite, I think.
Have you seen Nina Drama's newest video of Kai Asakura?
No.
Oh, I think you'll enjoy this one. This gives you full Tom Aspinall vibes.
It can't be that bad. That Aspinall video is...
Where is it? I don't think this is the part I want. I thought it shared this. Let me find it real quick.
Nina Drama.
Never mind. Doesn't have the part. But basically, he's just like, I don't know. I encourage you to find it on your own. I guess I'll find it.
All right, word. Yeah, it can't be.
We'll end this kind of here. But yeah, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, invest accordingly. Jackson and Grant have the more wise kind of ways to go about this. I'm going to give you the outside the box. It's probably not going to work, but who knows? I get lucky on occasion. So with that said, appreciate y'all. Talk to you later. Peace now.
Peace.